Have you guys seen the new South Park episode?
The number one drug in America, it's sugar.
Metabolic syndrome in general is definitely a disease. Things that we never thought we would see in children. I mean, the type 2 diabetes we used to think of as adult onset diabetes.
The food companies here in America, they will specifically add addictive chemicals to make it taste better. This is the problem, and it's addictive. Hello, everybody! Welcome to another episode of Suits and Scrubs. This is the podcast where we help you retire early before 40 and also help manage your health through smart lifestyle choices. I'm Zachary, SVP. I retired before 40, so I want to help other people do it. And join with me is my beautiful wife, Emily, MD. And she specializes in gut, hormones, and weight. Fun fact about Emily. So guys, this past weekend, Emily made a very healthy meal, and she put bananas and I don't know what, cottage cheese and something. Anyway, they're like muffins, and they were absolutely delicious, and they're like low sugar. I'm like, how the hell? Like, so if you guys are interested in this, we're gonna like probably create a reel for you, because I don't know what you do, but you just whip something up and it tastes good. It
was good. It's usually because bananas have been sitting on the counter and they are overripe and brown.
Overripe.
That makes the best muffins.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So here at Suits and Scrubs, we talk about one topic from health and wealth. So each episode we alternate. So today is the health episode. So Emily, MD, is going to outline today. And guys, this is a fun one for today. Go ahead, Em.
So have you guys seen the new South Park episode? Because we just watched it, and there's a lot to unpack there. I know. So South Park is known to be very vulgar and pushes the limits, very controversial. I think everybody knows that, even if you're not a fan, you don't watch. And so they decided to talk about obesity in this episode, which I know just a little bit about.
Just a little bit. He is an obesity medicine specialist, just a little bit.
So during today's podcast episode, we're going to be talking about the five most controversial topics that are discussed throughout the episode. And
there was a lot to pick through because there's so many, but we picked 5.
I know, it was hard to pick just 5, but one I would say is the use of weight loss medications in children. 2 would be the class differences in treatment of obesity. 3 would be the superficial side of the use of GLP-1s or weight loss drugs. 4 would be how to navigate the American healthcare system. It's not easy.
Yep.
And 5 would be the corruption within the food industry, which that's a lot, but we're going to fit it into just one episode.
One episode. And if you guys like this, we might do a part 2, or we do have a bonus for you at the end. We want to hit on one little topic, which we did a whole podcast episode. So we're not going to dive deep into this. And guys, I think our hottest episodes are Ozempic or weight loss. That's what you guys want to hear from us. So that's what we keep doing.
With a little health and a little wealth and a lot of love, that's a life that we live. Suits and Scrubs.
So, okay. So, all right. So let's summarize the episode. So if you haven't seen it, this is also for you too. You know, spoiler alert. If you do want to watch it, stop listening now, cut us off, go watch it, then watch this. Or if you do not have any interest in it, then just press play and keep going. So, all right. So, Em, take it away to tell us what happened in first. And we're going to do like a quick summary.
Yeah, so the episode basically starts with Eric Cartman and his mom going to the doctor's office together. And they're talking about how he is overweight and he's starting to have blood pressure issues. And he's in elementary school, so he's a child, even though the show has been out for years and years and years. And so his doctor basically says, you know, there's this new magic medication that will make you all of a sudden lose weight. And Cartman kind of goes through this dreamscape where he's skinny, all of a sudden thin, and he has all these friends that aren't making fun of him anymore, and he's just living his best life. And then he kind of gets knocked out of it by the doctor saying, oh, but it's $1,200 a month for this medication. And his mom says, I don't think I can afford it. And so then he gives him the other option.
What is the other option?
Of a medication called Lizzo.
Wow. And what was that? What was Lizzo?
It was basically so lowering your standards and expectations and just being happy with your body the way it is.
Right. And it was underneath the body positivity movement.
Correct.
Yeah. And so now flash forward.
We can't talk today.
Yeah, we can't. Flash forward. And so what enters the scene is a middle-aged woman who has she wants to lose about 5 pounds or so. And so she goes to school and she picks up her child, and a lot of other moms come in and they have these little crop tops on, and they have like a little 4-pack going on, and they're all like, "Hey, look at us! You know, we have our crop tops on." Ooh, you know, and then what's really funny is they're completely wearing crop tops the entire time, which is hilarious to me. And it's so much infatuated that they keep throwing these Ozempic parties. In fact.
And so they're talking about, so they're wearing crop tops because they've lost their last 5 pounds because they were using things like Ozempic and Manjaro.
And then on top of that, you know, it showed the daughter first of one of the main characters. I'm not a South Park watcher, so you know, I watched it just for this purpose. And the daughter wore a crop top, and the dad was like, "Well, I'm gonna wear a crop top to school. If that's what you're gonna wear." And so he goes to school in a crop top, and then the other women say, "Oh, you're looking good." You know, and so
they think he's wearing a crop top because he's also on Ozempic.
Exactly. And clearly he's not. You know, I mean, he has a little pudge like I do. You know, but anyway, so
they invite him to this drug party, this Ozempic party, and so he gets kind of wrapped up in the middle-aged moms.
Yes, middle-aged moms, and so they kind of powwow together, and they have a bunch of drug Ozempic parties, and they inject each other, and make it all glamorous and glorified, and you know, and they feel good. And this man actually does do drugs. I think he does marijuana, and a drug party. Of course I'll go. And he thought it was like regular drugs. He
brings a baggie of weed, not knowing that everybody's giving each other Ozempic shots. Right. But from there, so Cartman is talking to all of his friends about how sad he is because there's this magic drug out there and he can't afford it because insurance won't cover it. And so his friends decide that they're going to help him get this medication covered by insurance. And so they go to this insurance land to try to file a claim.
And guys, I've actually counted. This is actually kind of interesting. I'm weird. This is how I do things. You know, I'm a numbers person. But guys, I've counted how many times they went to insurance, to the doctor, to a specialist, to the original doctor. So it was 1, 2, 3, it was 13 times they went to, and I still don't think they got approved for it, but they went through this whole rigmarole around trying to get this drug. So just really quickly, I'm gonna shout it out because it's just so true and so relatable. So if you guys are listening to this and you've been a doctor this many times to try to get through and navigating the healthcare system, it's a lot.
Which and we'll talk about this more later in the episode, but that's, I feel like, a pretty accurate representation of what insurance wants.
So they were so defeated that they decided to go to the compound pharmacy, which we did a whole episode on compound pharmacy. So, you know, and Emily took a stand on that episode. If you're interested in that, check it out. And they did this whole compound pharmacy.
Yeah, so they created the medication in their garage.
And by the way, they looked at TikTok and how to make it and stuff like that. I was like, things are really out there like that. Mm. That's how crazy this viral sensation right now is on these weight loss medications.
So they created this not only for Cartman, but they wanted to distribute it to everyone else that couldn't afford the medication. And then you see the crazy middle-aged women who were throwing Ozempic parties. Basically the Ozempic was no longer available
because the doctors denied it, and it says taking medication away from
people that actually need it
from versus vanity purposes.
Yep. And so they decide to rob a pharmacy because they're so in need of their Ozempic.
And get this, they have the little crop tops on. And so after that, this is hilarious to me, but the entire food administration, right? You have Captain Crunch, you have Cocoa Puffs, you have, man, I used to love the Smacks with the frog. They had Tony the Tiger, they had it all. And they're all looking around and they're getting pissy because their numbers were deflating. You know, and
because
I think
people were on these weight loss medications and they no longer wanted sugary cereal.
exactly. So they're not dependent. And that kind of goes back to that. I think it was the Kellogg CEO, just eat cereal. Like, I think I said that 2 or 3 episodes. That still makes me irate. But I'm going to not digress. But anyway, so it's pretty much showing how profits were impacted because people were not dependent on sugary foods and sugary cereals and things of that nature. And I think it was a good metaphor for that specific topic.
So at the end, basically the CEO of the cereal company and all of the crazy middle-aged moms rob this truck of the medication that Cartman's friends are going to use to make the compounded Ozempic or the compounded weight loss medications. And so they no longer have any of the medications and they can't get access to it for Cartman. And so basically they decide at the end that instead of making fun of him for obesity, that they realize that it actually is a disease and it's not just something that they should bully him and make fun of him about. And so basically he's living his best life because his friends aren't making fun of him anymore, but he still hasn't lost any weight.
And guys, there's so many golden quotes, and we refrained from saying those golden quotes because we had them peppered in. So, all right, so let's break this down. So we just gave you a quick summary. Let's just hit on topic number 1, which is the use of this medication in our youth.
And I would say this is a very controversial topic. We were also listening to that podcast episode with Mark Hyman and Tina Moore, and I can't remember the other person that was talking, and he was the one that was so irate about pediatricians treating obese children with these medications and how it's kind of the standard of care, which I don't necessarily believe that it's the standard of care. But in South Park, Cartman, I think he's 8, 9, 10 years old. He's in elementary school. And they say that insurance won't cover it. And I think part of it is that's true because Ozempic and Mounjaro, which are the medications that are more for diabetes treatment, not weight management, they don't have an indication for, I think, treatment for children. But Wegovy, if you are 12 and you meet the criteria for obesity, 12 and above, you're a candidate for Wegovy. And then Saxenda is the other one that has that, meets that FDA criteria. So it is something that can be used in children that are 12 and older, but the question is, should it be used? And I think that there's this misconception that doctors, that pediatricians are out there just pushing medications. I think that there's a lot that they're doing to basically educate family and educate children on how to eat healthier, but the odds are really stacked against them with vending machines and the constant access to these sugary cereals. Right. If you ever watch like Nickelodeon or the Disney Channel and you see how many commercials are for these unhealthy snacks
and food, like I'm telling you, like I don't know about you guys, but growing up, there's all these little things. It's like, I remember this, it was like a ring or whatever, and you take the ring and you take the goo and you put the goo in the damn ring and you lick it and it's really good. It's like sugar on top of sugar. It's like sugar syrup on sugar, you know? And so I know things haven't changed that much. So what is your stance on giving children these medications?
And let me just preface this by saying I am not a pediatrician. I'm an internist and an obesity medicine specialist, and I treat people 18 and older. And I haven't really done any pediatric medicine since med school. But I think that it's definitely a last resort, or it should be a last resort. And I think that there are things that we never thought we would see in children. I mean, the type 2 diabetes we used to think of as adult onset diabetes because it was more lifestyle and it was something that people were getting later in life. But we're seeing it more and more in children, and we're seeing fatty liver disease in children and high cholesterol and all of these high-risk conditions that we never thought we would see in children. And so I think if you've given it a fair shot and you've tried lifestyle for an extended period of time and you're not budging, and sometimes it's educating the family, and sometimes there's only one obese child in the family and the other kids are of normal weight, normal size. And so it's, why do we have to keep the rest of the family from eating this way? And so it's really hard to...
It's very isolating. So for those kids or, adults who were those children, that could be very isolating. And can really create tension and trauma. That's actually really sad. I never really thought about it like that. And so what I'm hearing you say is your stance on this is try everything else first, which is what we believe here. We believe food is medicine and lifestyle choices. Emily is not, I'm not saying she's against Big Pharma, but Big Pharma has its place. And she's not far right, she's not far left. She's big into functional medicine, which is where we're moving in our brand and in this podcast, to be honest. If you've been watching us since the beginning, you've been seeing some of those learnings and trainings and applications that you've been providing in our life and also to your patients, and a huge outcome. But yeah, so your stance is maybe if you tried everything else, it's worth having that conversation with a pediatrician and understanding what those impacts, because fatty liver disease, you have to weigh these risks, guys, right?
Yeah, and fatty liver disease, it's not just something that's benign, that's not causing issues. I mean, we've talked about this in prior episodes, but cirrhosis or liver failure, we used to see primarily in people with alcoholism. And now we're seeing cirrhosis, we're seeing liver failure because that's progressed. That fatty liver has progressed over years and years.
Wow.
To the point where it's causing scarring and damage of the liver to where the liver can't work anymore. And so it's not something that's not causing issues. And to think of a child in elementary school who already has those signs, I think it's scary. So I think my stance is I would probably pull the trigger with an adult sooner than I would with a child with medication.
That's fair.
But fair. I wouldn't.
You wouldn't rule it out.
I wouldn't keep it off the table.
Yeah, but that's not your first go-to. So hear that clearly. It's not your first go-to. It's something to consider if everything else is tried and failed, because these other conditions, these other ailments are worse than taking GLP-1s with the side effects included.
Yeah, and we don't have the studies. I guess so with Zepbound, which is the same, it's tirzepatide, the same thing as Mounjaro, that they're doing clinical studies with, I think, children as young as 6 right now to see if it's safe to use. But I think you need more of that for some of these medications that aren't technically FDA approved for the use in children, just to make sure that they're safe and they're not causing any issues.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. All right, we could talk more about that, but we're trying to keep like 5 to 10 minutes per main one.
Yeah.
The second one is the divide between the class systems of having availability of this medication versus what can be affordable or not.
Yeah, and I want to, this was an exact quote from the episode.
Yes, this is where we start putting those quotes in, guys.
So they say rich people get Ozempic, poor people get body positivity.
Ouch.
And
so let's say that again. Rich people get Ozempic, poor people get Lizzo is what I think they said. Mm-hmm. And then Lizzo was just a synonym for body positivity. So rich people get Ozempic, poor people get Lizzo.
And I think it's a pretty accurate representation of just the way things are looking right now with these medications, because you see people like Oprah and the Kardashians and other stars that are at least rumored to be on these medications, and they don't necessarily meet the criteria, the FDA criteria, or even have issues that they would benefit from this. They're basically just using it for cosmetic reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And because
we'll get into that in a second.
Because they can afford it.
Right.
But people who truly need this medication, who have poorly controlled diabetes or have fatty liver disease or sleep apnea, have all of these kind of downstream effects from metabolic syndrome, but they can't afford the medication. I mean, this medication really, if you're getting the brand name medication without insurance coverage, which is very limited, it's hard to find insurance to cover it, to fully cover it, is going to be $1,200 a month. And that's more than a mortgage payment for a lot of people.
It is. And so let's be clear, though. So when Emily says that's pretty accurate, she was saying it's accurate from a rich person perspective. She's not saying that, poor people and body positivity. She's pretty much saying that the medicine is out of reach for people who want it. And the people who usually need it are from these lower income social economic communities. So it does create a more divide.
Yeah, and I think it goes beyond just the medication, which we've talked about in prior episodes, but the access to what you need to live a healthy life it's so much easier to get if you have the means and you have money, but also if you live in certain areas versus if you don't have access to those things, then you have a hard time getting out of that situation, and poor health can also drain the wallet as well. And so if you're in and out of the hospital constantly,
Right.
then you're not able to build your wealth because you're suffering from these illnesses. And so I think it's this feed forward situation where
It is.
where the rich are able to stay rich because they can afford these things, whereas the poor can't really get out of the situation.
Out of the situation that they're in. And again, what you've seen firsthand in the communities that you have served and your peers and all that are the communities that need it the most are the ones that can't afford it, which makes it really just disparate, in my opinion. And so that's our stance. We're not going to talk about the Lizzo thing yet, but that is kind of a summary of the class differences between obesity and who can afford. So the next one is the superficiality of GLP-1s. We have not done an episode on this yet, but we'll just give a little teaser on this. What is your stance on that?
I mean, I think that any medication like this can certainly be abused, and I don't think it's a medication that should be used if you're just trying to lose, 5 pounds before a high school reunion,
Right.
or which is what they were discussing in the show, that these middle-aged moms were
The crop tops.
were going to Pilates and they needed to lose that last 5 pounds so they could have their 6-pack abs, because the medication does have potential side effects. There are certain risks that are associated with the medication, and so you definitely have to weigh the benefits with the risks and see if it's worth it.
Right. And so your stance is do not take it for superficiality reasons is what you're saying here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really hard sometimes to tease that out, because sometimes people feel bad about themselves when they are obese, and so they do, some of it is they want to look better, they want to feel better, they want to look better, and they want to fit into society.
Yeah.
So I think that there's always part of that underlying theme when you take these medications. It's not just, I'm sure people aren't just wanting to be on the medication because it potentially decreases their cholesterol numbers,
Right.
or
Inflammation.
sometimes that's not the motivation. Sometimes it is more superficial. I'm not saying it's like that for everyone, but I think that if you're strictly using it when you are a normal weight and you don't have the associated risks, and you aren't kind of technically taking it away from someone who might really need it, I'm not a proponent of that. I think if you just have a few pounds to lose, it's not a reason to be on an injectable medication.
Right. And so what would be your threshold for folks that, I guess, what is the danger zone of, and let's just put a number to it.
So I think if
40
someone,
pounds.
I wouldn't say specific numbers, because we've talked about in prior episodes, there's what they call skinny fat too, where people have a normal BMI, but they are metabolically unhealthy.
Right.
And so potentially they might benefit from the medication. I think it's for PCOS, for example. I think some
Right.
people with PCOS, with insulin resistance, they have a really hard time just with lifestyle alone. It takes a lot of work.
It does.
And sometimes even with a lot of work, you barely see things move. And so I think it's, if you have certain comorbidities like insulin resistance or PCOS or high cholesterol or sleep apnea, and a lot of these typically do go hand in hand with a BMI above a certain level. But I think even if you have a slightly lower BMI, but you have other reasons that you would benefit from this medication, then it's reasonable to take. But you also are risking, say if someone has a BMI of 22 or 21, which is a perfectly normal, healthy BMI, but they're trying to take the medication because they still want to lose weight because they're still unhappy with their body, that is potentially risking side effects when you already have a normal BMI. And the potential, if you're losing more weight, you're typically wasting muscle, you're typically losing
Right.
muscle, which has a negative impact on your health. And so I think it's a slippery slope that people should not be taking it for that reason.
For sure. So for sure. And so I know there's a lot there. So the few words you said, I just want to define for our audience here. Say that.
Comorbidities.
Comorbidities. It's just ailments, right? Just
other health issues.
So if you got stuck on that word, you're listening to us, that this is why I'm here. This is why we have this podcast, because she defines her industry and I'm like, third grade. I don't know, So there you go. So that, but also just to kind of summarize that, and the reason why, like, I'm approaching it from like a layman's, like, I don't know. So when I put a number out there, that was probably ignorant for me to say. And you broke that down very beautifully, I think, because you talked about the BMI, and also there's a lot of mental health issues, like you said, as it relates. And that's the whole theme of this episode, which we'll talk about. Flash bonus at the end. All right. So Emily's a no on superficial purposes, with the understanding that with the BMI and all that.
Yeah, I think it should be a decision made ultimately for health and not for the superficiality, for the cosmetic reasons.
Gotcha.
If you're on it, there should be some health benefit that you're getting from it.
Exactly. So that way you're not taking away.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it's more just you're not putting yourself at risk, because I think eventually maybe more people will have access to these medications. And so I don't think it should be thought of as taking the medication away from someone else who needs it, which I know there's a lot of controversy there. But I think it just, what are you putting into your body and why, and making sure that it's a smart decision. And there's if you're one of those people, I think these medications can be used very safely and don't necessarily cause side effects for everyone. But I'm just saying, there's always that potential risk for something bad to happen if you're taking a medication or you're going to surgery. And so make sure that it's going to benefit you.
Exactly. And bonus tip, guys, the reason why I know this is because we did an episode on this. You need to do it under supervision. Mm-hmm. That is very, very important. That could save your life. Do it with supervision. Someone like an Emily, someone like one of these... like your doctor, so with supervision, who are specialized in this, so they can help you manage your side effects more. Because, for example, you can take the medication, and I think it was after you eat or something, or right before you eat. I don't remember.
Well, I think so. The medication is so readily available now because you have all of these people with different formulations of it. You have hairdressers selling it, and at different med spas, or getting it on the black market, or getting it online. That if people really want it, they can get access to it.
Right.
But just because you can get access to it doesn't mean that there aren't dangers involved with dosing yourself. And so I think
and if you want to know more about this, guys, we did a whole episode on compound pharmacy and Ozempic. Bootleg Ozempic is what we're calling it. Check it out. It's a must watch if you're interested in this drug and if you want to get it. Okay, I took us down a rabbit hole, but I think it's very, very important there. Okay. So the next topic is difficulty navigating the American healthcare system,
which is something that I think everyone has probably experienced or been a part of. It's not just with these weight loss medications, and I don't think we really learn how to use insurance, or what exactly we're supposed to know whenever we go into doctor's visits. I mean, personally, me, before I became a doctor, I didn't really have a knowledge base about what the process was with insurance. And I think when you see things on the back end, when you're working in healthcare and you know how things work, it's much easier, but it takes away from the autonomy, takes the autonomy away from the patient if you don't have an understanding about how insurance works and the kind of the process, because honestly the anger is typically misplaced, because it's really the insurance company that is causing the barrier and keeping you from getting your medication. But I think a lot of times the anger is placed on the doctor's office or the healthcare providers.
What a great facade, though, in my opinion. And guys, if you have not seen our first episode, Where Have All the Good Doctors Gone? This is probably the sole reason why Emily quit traditional medicine.
Well, really, it's so true that insurance companies dictate the way that we practice
100%.
Medicine, because if they're not going to cover a medication to be used, it doesn't matter if it's the best medication on the market. If your patient can't get it, if they can't afford it, then you're basically at the mercy of the insurance company. You have to use what they can afford.
Right.
And sometimes that ties your hands. you don't really know what else you can do. And not only that, there's a potential that they will cover it, but you have to jump through hoops to get the medication covered.
And I have to say, out of everything on that episode, 13 times, I really think they nailed the doctor, the insurance, the specialist, the network, your primary care doctor, and the paperwork, and all this. And then it's funny because the insurance guy, you know, they had like a little spinning around phone, which we didn't talk about, and then a typewriter because it was so slow.
It was like the sloth from Zootopia.
Exactly.
At the TV.
Exactly what it was like.
Yes.
And so I actually thought they did a really good job of hitting that home.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think it's so sad. It's funny because it's true, but a lot of times, and even I think they sent him to get an obesity medicine covered, they sent him to get an x-ray or something, which was completely like, why would you? But it's so true that sometimes you have to do unnecessary things first in order to get it covered. Or with certain medication classes, they'll say, we're only going to cover this new medication if they've tried X, Y, and Z first. So let's try this medication that we know causes a bunch of side effects. And you have to give it a good, college try, be on it for 3 months or be on it for 30 days before we can say that it didn't work or before we can say that you had side effects. I mean, it's crazy.
And the thing is, you can cut through this, right? And so how I cut through it, because guys, I was like I told you, I gained 65 pounds when I was in COVID. I wasn't proud of that. I was like 315 at my highest. And I lost like 40 pounds, still have a bunch more to go. I was not losing weight. And I did, I would think, what was it? Zepbound, Wegovy?
The Saxenda was...
Saxenda, but I didn't do it for vanity purposes. I did it because I was doing everything right, going to the gym, eating right, for the most part. I had like one cheat meal a week, which is, I used to do a cheat day, and I went through a BC medicine specialist. I had this one navigate that process like it was a damn project, like following up and calling and doing all this stuff. You can get it if it's for that purpose, and we do give...
But you can't always. I mean, you're speaking from the perspective of actually having decent insurance that actually covered Zepbound, which was the second time around. But it was easier to get the Saxenda initially, and this was, I guess, a couple of years ago. And then more recently, trying to find Zepbound, it wasn't just getting the doctor to write the prescription and getting them to do the prior authorization to get the medication covered. At that point, too, it was finding it in local pharmacies.
Yeah.
And so that just adds a whole nother layer to the issue with these medications. But it's so true that they basically kind of pin you. It's like you're a pinball going back and forth between specialists and primary care and having to get certain medications first. And then still... you might not get it covered. And the formularies change from one year to the next. And so even if they
month to month.
even if they cover it 1 year and you do everything right and you finally get the medication, they can just drop it within a couple months and you're SOL again.
And that's what happened with the women with the crop tops, right? Which honestly in those examples were actually, I think, valid. Because they're doing it for superficial vanity purposes. And so there's a quote on the show that I just want to read aloud here. We don't pay for obesity because we don't believe it is a disease.
That's what the insurance company said.
Your reaction to that?
I think we're seeing that in reality. I think, and they aren't necessarily saying those words.
Yeah, I'm sorry. When I'm asking that question to you, I'm like, is obesity a disease?
Yes, I would say it is, and I think it's very complex. I don't think it's just the BMI being over 30 making it a disease. I think metabolic syndrome in general is definitely a disease, and it's one of these things where it's hard to get out of that cycle, because once you have a certain amount of adipose tissue, that the fat cells are metabolically active and inflammatory, and that causes inflammation in the body that makes it harder for you to lose weight. And it's just, I feel like it's this feed-forward cycle that some people just can't get out of with just lifestyle. I think if you have the means and you have a personal chef and a home gym and you don't have to work for a living, I mean, yes, I'm sure that you could just do lifestyle and get there, but unfortunately, that's not a situation that a lot of people live in.
That's true. What would you say to people, like, I have to be devil's advocate here, This is my Andrew Tate army here. What would you say to people like that who would say, no, it's just a willpower issue?
I don't think it is a willpower issue, because I think that especially when you're eating an ultra-processed diet,
Bingo.
it's this addictive, this food addiction a lot of times.
Bingo.
It's not even just the diet and exercise part of. I think a lot of people, they are doing that, and they are being consistent with eating a healthier diet and exercising, but they're to the point, they might be in their 40s or 50s or 60s, and they just can't do enough to offset the weight.
Right.
And, if it's coming off slowly, it makes it even harder to stay motivated and to continue those lifestyle changes, because you're just not seeing things budge
Right.
for a while.
Which honestly, like, just playing devil's advocate again, I could see the frustration though, right? Because obesity costs a lot of money for the healthcare system. Let's just be honest, and we don't treat it head on, which I think is such bullshit in my opinion. But I do think that if you are looking at someone who is not trying, and they don't have the willpower to eat healthy or to exercise, and they work from home, they don't practice anything within that lifestyle, right? Whether it's an addiction or whatever, they eat macaroni and cheese for dinner or whatever, Like in that example, I think the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting different results and not seeking help, which some people may not have the option of seeking help. Some people are just subject to their environment. I'm not talking about the people with the environment, right? I'm not talking about the people who can't afford alternatives. I'm talking about the people who can make those changes. And what would you say to them? Those kind of people.
I mean, I think
I kind of agree with Andrew Tate Army a little bit on that one, but I don't think it one size fits all.
Well, I think that you have to want to change your life and change yourself to be successful. And that just goes to show with these medications, it shouldn't be a magic bullet. It shouldn't be,
Right.
You shouldn't just be started on the medication because it's going to help you lose weight and it's going to solve all your problems. I mean, it's supposed to be used as a tool where you're also exercising, and you should be doing weight training and eating a high protein diet
Everybody.
while you're on these medications, especially because you don't
Right.
want to lose your healthy weight. You don't want
Right.
to lose your muscle
Like muscle wasting.
by being on these medications, or just weight loss in general. You want to do it in a healthy way. And so, yes, I think that you should be doing lifestyle changes along with the medication. But I think sometimes it's hard. It can be overwhelming. Where do you get started? Or for the people who are in that situation because they've tried diet after diet and they've tried, time after time, and they maybe lose the weight initially and they can't keep it off. They gain it all back plus some,
Right.
and they get frustrated because they're like, well, I don't have the motivation to continue to eat like this forever.
Right.
Because usually they have success with really restrictive diets,
Right.
or aggressively exercising, and they think that that's what lifestyle is going to be like. They're going to have to do that the rest of their lives
That's
to
right.
be able to. And so I think part of it is just not knowing the healthy way to do it.
Right. Or, yeah, that's true. That's true. And usually they focus on a restrictive diet. So, no, I wanted your perspective on that because I have a very specific perspective. Because, listen, I want to eat what I want and not go to the gym and not exercise and do things I was doing in my teens and my 20s. I will say this before I close that topic out, because I'm probably going to get some hate mail on that, especially when you mentioned Andrew Tate. I would say that there's people that we know in our network, right? One person can eat the same exact thing, have the same lifestyle, have the same exercise habits. This person is skinny and this person is overweight. This person is fat. That is a challenge. That does exist. And for those people, I do feel like that's a challenge, right? And it's not always necessarily lifestyle. It could be genetics. It could be, it's more of a comprehensive issue. So, all right. So you got your take on that. So obesity is a disease. All right. So corruption in the food industry. This is where I think we talk about insurance, you talk about healthcare, you talk about everything. This is something that I think is so overshadowed. And I think it's probably one of the biggest reasons why we are in this epidemic or pandemic? You tell me, I always forget. Obesity is an epidemic or pandemic?
I would say it's becoming a pandemic.
It's becoming a pandemic,
yes.
Right? And you would define those two terms for everybody, epidemic and pandemic, really quick. Everyone should know because COVID, but...
Epi is more a focused area,
right.
Whereas pan is a more expansive.
Worldwide.
So just kind of like the COVID pandemic because the entire
exactly.
world. And so I think it's spreading to different countries, especially developed countries.
Right.
Where it's just you have access to all of these ultra processed foods and fast food restaurants.
Exactly. And so guys, the reason why I bring this up is because it is so overlooked. You know, you look at someone individual, let's say that they're overweight or they're obese and they have a food addiction, or they don't have a food addiction, they have PCOS, or hey, they don't have a PCOS, they have genetic predisposition of being fatter. You know, but at the same time, look at the fucking food industry. Like, this is a real serious thing, especially here in the United States. Like, you could put products by products. Like, for example, a Fanta orange, I'll never forget it. It's like burned in my memory here. You look at a Fanta orange in the UK, and it's orange juice with some additives. A Fanta here, it is bright fucking orange, has sugar and all these additives, like 80 grams of sugar for this 112 ounce. And you see these kids running around the playgrounds drinking sugar water, and you're just thinking in your head like, this is the problem, and it's addictive. And one thing they said, and I'm sorry, I'm asking you, but I got to react to this. The one thing they said in the show was, you're not the number one drug here, Ozempic. The number one drug in America, it's sugar.
And it's true.
I got chills on that.
It's so true. But it just really goes beyond the foods that we know. I mean, we know that sodas are full of sugar, and that a lot of these cereals like Lucky Charms and Fruit Loops that they...
Why is it so good though?
We know that those are high in sugar, but
it's like childhood in a box.
But it's hard to find stuff. Even when I was making the Mississippi pot roast the other night,
which is our Friday tradition here at the Susan Scrubs household.
And it's a Whole30 recipe, and so I put all of the ingredients in there that are supposed to be clean ingredients, and then you're looking to try to find the pepperoncini peppers. And even at most of the grocery stores, you look at, if you're going to get the only pepperoncini peppers that are available, they're on the pickle aisle. And most often it has yellow number 7 or whatever. It has artificial ingredients just as preservatives. So you can't even find something as an ingredient to make dinner without it having added chemicals that can be dangerous to your health.
Right. Right. And I will say this, like the food administration, the food companies here in America, they will specifically add addictive chemicals to make it taste better, to make it taste sweeter. So you have no choice but be addicted. You know, and then growing up, like I feel like health wasn't a widely known thing. It really wasn't. You know, I remember growing up, and this is no slam against my parents, you know, I bring them up and I try not to do it because I don't think they like it. But we used to go get Happy Meals. And
I think a lot of us did.
That's what I'm saying. It's not just me, it's you too.
I think that it was a different time before.
You just didn't know.
Before obesity was even a big problem.
But my dad would say this, I don't mean to interrupt you, I got to finish that thought. My dad would say there, make sure you eat your French fries before you eat your chicken because you got to get your vegetables. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, you didn't know. Yeah, you just didn't know.
I think back then it was less of a focus because we didn't have as big of a problem as we do now. And
that's I remember damn cafeteria, them square pizzas. They were so delicious. Like it's pizza day. That's what you're feeding your kids, you know?
And so, I think it's still like that. I think I think
it's like that. Oh, and the sugar cups. There's like 30, 40, 50 grams of sugar in this little
fruit cups.
Yeah. I used to fruit cups. I love those. And I would drink the juice at the end, knowing I did not know. I thought it was just fruit juice. No, it's sugar juice. And juices. I'm sorry, I am not letting you talk. One last thing, and I'm going to shut up and let you react to it. I apologize, but this gets me fired up because this ain't fair. I used to drink a bunch of juice in college thinking I was doing healthy. And then fast forward 10 years later, 20 years, whatever. It is sugar and additives and 5% juice. I was killing myself.
And I think it's probably marketing that makes it this way, but
one delicious Welch's at a time, I was killing myself.
I would have plenty of patients who, we're talking about diet and lifestyle and how to manage their diabetes and just couldn't figure out why are they still having sugar issues? Why is their blood sugar still so high? And then spending enough time to say, okay, I want you to tell me exactly what you had for breakfast, what you had for snack, what you had for lunch, what you had for dinner.
And this is why Emily would come home at 10 p.m., 11 p.m. at night.
And not just...
because she spent too much time with her patients. She cares, guys.
And not just what you're eating, but what you're drinking too. And they're like, oh, well, I drink, orange juice. Or there is this special type of smoothie that they thought was a health smoothie that they thought was benefiting. They were getting these greens, or they were getting fruits and veggies, but it's just drinking straight sugar. And there are food products out there that are marketed as healthy foods,
right,
which is criminal.
I think it is criminal, and I think here in America, they just kind of run rogue. But if you think about politicians and lobbyists and all that, which we will not talk about because we don't have enough time for today.
Oh, well, but that's a part of it.
It's a huge part of it. And that's the thing, guys, we don't look at, like when we think about obesity, you think about the pandemic of obesity. Obesity is the disease. You're looking at isolated individuals, you're looking at doctors, you're looking at insurance companies, and then you're not looking at food companies. You got to look at food companies. I'm super, super aggressive about that topic, apparently.
Well, this is a quote that I saw in an article talking about the corruption in the food industry, but they say that these powerful companies have a monopoly, that 80% of the market share of the grocery items that we have access to are owned by these same big
3 or 4 brands,
big food companies.
Yeah.
And they said it's from seeds and fertilizers to slaughterhouses and supermarkets. So it's not just the marketed food that's on the shelves. It's they're dictating what the farmers are able to even grow because they have a monopoly on how much money they're going to give farmers for certain foods.
That's right. That's the dangerous side of capitalism. So just turning the gears on wealth a little bit. We did a whole episode of socialism versus capitalism, and where I stand on that. That is very dangerous. If I think capitalism is a great thing, but there could be a lot of dangers associated with that, right? Imagine one company owning everything and you just don't, that's just insane.
And that's why this is the biggest part against the argument where people are saying, like, just eat healthier, just change your lifestyle, eat healthier and exercise. You don't need medications for this. And if we lived in a silo and in a vacuum and our children didn't have constant access to these foods,
that's right,
or are on government assistance for, they get money to be able to eat school lunches, but what are these school lunches that we're providing? Right. And there are vending machines at every corner.
That's right.
We even talked about, we were at the YMCA working out the other day, and what is one of the vending machines actually had on the
health choice in green. It was all organic looking, and
healthier on the go choices. And then if you actually look to see what's in the vending machine, it's still all Cheetos and Fritos and
were they baked
and
Cheetos
candy.
Or just
no, it was all
gosh.
Candy bars, and it's just
it's cheap. It's cheap. It's easy to process. It's so crazy to me how cheap processed food is less expensive than broccoli. But guys, it's done by design.
Well, the other thing too is
done by design. It should be more expensive making processed food.
There's a nutritionist that I follow who talks about even going into pharmacies like CVS and Walgreens. If you think about it, it's supposed to be a drug pharmacy. It's supposed to be kind of a medical establishment, if you think about it, or a health establishment. And then all of the foods that they offer in there are just convenience.
I'm not gonna lie to y'all. CVS food, man, it's the best place to get Cadbury eggs. We used to love.
Yeah, it has all the junk.
It. Yeah, I used to love going to CVS. My grandma's like, "Let's go to CVS." We're like, "Okay," because all them little toys and little treats and hell yeah, sign me up. I love me some CVS. Give me a long receipt.
They always have the biggest variety of candy and so it's just
but that's just a good example of just it's placed there on purpose.
Yeah, the marketing.
Yes, the marketing in the food companies. So guys, don't sleep on the food companies. And so the bonus at the end is what we want to surprise you with. And this episode's running a little bit long, but we're going to do it anyway. The body positivity. So we kind of scan past this whole Lizzo thing, and in the episode, the food companies masked as body positivity, which is there's so much ingenuity in that. It's so genius to me. Like how whoever wrote this was very, very smart. And so they were really leaning into the body positivity movement disguised as the drug companies. It was brilliant.
Because it was making them
Money.
more money.
Exactly.
By keeping people on
they were funding the
ultra-processed
marketing
foods.
around the body positivity movement. It was brilliant, I will say this, but I have a lot of close friends who are in the body positivity movement, and so I want to be very fair to that community because they do check out our podcast.
And we've talked about this before. It shouldn't be mutually exclusive.
Exactly.
I think
that's exactly.
I think the body positivity movement is a great thing in that everyone should be respected and loved at all sizes. And I don't think that there should be prejudice or bias
100%.
towards people because of the way they look or their weight.
Right.
But I think that it's too often it's divided into two. Like you can be healthy and you can be different sizes.
Yeah, and this is where I like Lizzo. I'm gonna get a lot of hate mail for this, but I don't give a shit. I think Lizzo is actually a great example of body positivity. Now, I don't want to see her naked ass and her, her showing her bikini shots. I don't personally want to see that. I'm gonna be honest. But what I really do enjoy about her is I actually like her music. So again, throw hate mail at me. What I really like about her is if you ever seen her damn shows, and we saw her reality show, I mean that woman hustles and she crushes, and
She's very in shape.
Yes, and she believes in being loved everybody, but she also believes in being healthy. She's like, listen, I stand for the body positivity, but I also stand for move your body, is what she said. Move your body, and I agree with that to 100%. And I think it's they did some play on that, and so I'm going to give her some credit on that. She's getting a lot of backlash, but I'm going to give her some credit on that because I do agree with that. And we agree with that. We're not saying that.
And she did a Peloton.
Oh yeah.
Workout. It's probably been a little while, but she was there in the studio and cycling with they were playing all of her
music. She was hustling too.
Yeah. It just shows that you can be physically fit at any size,
Right.
and it can have a positive impact on your overall health.
Yeah.
We've talked about this in the past that the people, technically women who were obese that met the BMI criteria for being obese but were physically fit
Right.
and active had less cardiovascular risk than people who had a normal BMI who were inactive,
Right.
who didn't exercise at all.
Yeah.
They technically were within that normal weight, but they were sedentary and had higher cardiac risk than people with a bigger BMI. So I think that really shows how important your activity comes in.
I agree. So that's the bonus at the end we wanted to hit on, just because that was kind of an underlying issue, and we kind of danced around that. Well, this episode has been a little bit longer than we hoped for, but that's another episode of Suits and Scrubs. So here, God first, family second, love always.
Health and then wealth. Until next time.
Bye, guys.
He's on the hustle, she's on the grind. There's no time to kill. For saving lives and new deadlines, and there's some holes to fill. With a little health and a little wealth and a lot of love. That's a life that we live. Suits and Scrubs.